everyone, and welcome back to the Shock Absorber podcast. And there's a very friendly hello to all our listeners and watchers, but also a very friendly hello to my favourite co-host.
Oh, wow. Bold to say that with Stu's not in the room.
Yeah, that's what I meant. The only reason I said it was because we've done a lot of episodes together recently.
We have, yeah. Stu is almost back.
Almost back. Because he's writing.
Lots of writing.
Imagine if you were handwriting that stuff. That would be hard work.
It would be a lot of hard work.
We talked about Kierkegaard.
You'd be more trained though. Like your hand would get
Oh, yeah. We talked about Kierkegaard a few weeks ago. That he was writing for 4 hours.
Yeah. And then walking for 4 hours.
And walking. And then just pages and pages.
Yeah.
They must, the old philosophers must have been writing, mustn't they?
Yep.
Way before computers. That is funny. And then not knowing, I wonder if you could know where to find stuff. I mean, how organised were these philosopher guys?
That's a great question. I don't know. I haven't read enough of their biographies to know. I reckon some of them were pretty scatty-brained. And
that's what I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Like who's the guy that got in the oven? What was his name?
Got in the oven?
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about Descartes?
Yeah.
Yes. He crawls. Yeah, is it an oven? Yeah, he crawls inside something and that's where he has his epiphany of, I think, therefore I am.
And Nietzsche tried to marry a horse, I think, didn't he?
Right. Okay, I haven't heard that story.
Maybe I'm making that up. We should check. I was just thinking about...
Fact check that us below.
So these people that like create things, whereas philosophy or even... content or whatever. Some people know Casey Neistat, who is he's a YouTube content creator.
Okay.
And he comes across as like extremely disorganized to me when I watch his content. But then like when he's done a tour of his studio, it's all meticulously catalogued and everything. But it's not like the labels and stuff he puts on it are all handwritten. Which I think is like a really sign of his personality.
Okay.
Is that he doesn't print labels out and make it all look nice and square. Everything's very organised and very, in a way that you can find things. But also, like, because he shows videos of him delving into this particular drive. I know where this is exactly. I know the date. I know where it's around this time. Oh, there it is. I found it. But the contrast is of him. You know, he could be a guy that gets in an oven. The kind of stuff that he creates, but he came to fame, Casey, by recording and publishing a blog every day. I think it was for 3 years.
Okay,
something like that.
Yeah, right.
And I once binged a lot of his content on a sick day.
Okay, that harks back to last week. Was it last week we were talking about, or 2 weeks ago, talking about just the repetition of effort.
Yes.
And building capacity.
Yes.
Through that.
Yeah, there's a volume. I like to think it's about volume. And the other way I've heard someone say about it is you're paying down ignorance debt. Ignorance debt. So you instead of people say, I don't know that. It's like, well, that's just because at the moment your ignorance debt is too high.
Oh, okay.
So as you do more volume of work, you're paying down the ignorance debt.
Oh, it's a very growth mindset way of seeing things.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm able to. Sometimes I'm not. Don't have a growth mindset. But let's start the episode with an article that you found almost straight after the last episode that we recorded and said, I wish we had this.
Yeah, so we recorded an episode, we had lunch, then we were going home and I was waiting for my wife and scrolling Substack and found...
And you texted
I'm like, we should have talked about this. Yeah. Yep. So this is from Carmen Imes, who I really appreciate her work. She has written some excellent books on the bearing God's name, being God's image, and she has just published a book, Becoming God's Family, Why the Church Still Matters. So I follow her Substack, and so you should definitely go check out hers. And then this article was actually a guest writing for another Substack I follow with Nijay Gupta. So she writes just a little bit about the importance of church. That's her thing. She's publicising the book that's literally just come out this week. So she's making a lot of guest appearances and podcast episodes and those kind of things about this, which is really, really good. And so this guest article, we can link to this in the show notes, is I think one of the threads that she's trying to pull out here, and it's a very short article, there's lots of different ideas going on, but it's the idea of our culture pushes us towards isolation and the church pulls us into community. And I think that that's one of the key things that she's writing about, and why the church still matters. So there's a theological piece. She goes a little bit into the theological piece here, but talking about how our culture is very individualistic, pushes us towards individualism, and it's technology has heightened this. Like, it was already a case before any of this kind of internet screen-based technology, but it has exacerbated the problem exponentially. And so one of the lines is, after a week of self-checkouts, Grubhub, DoorDash, and Amazon deliveries, we gather at church aching for genuine interaction. And so talking about why church matters in terms of actually physically embodying and coming together in this way. It links to the series that we're doing in 1 Peter. We preached on 1 Peter 2 last week, and the idea of being living stones, being built together. So there's this necessary corporate aspect of who we are. We are being saved into community, is a phrase from Joseph Hellerman that I use all the time. And I've also used before Rob Doyle's little quip in his book that community is necessary for salvation. And this idea that because that is who we are being saved into, we are expressing the reality of who we are, not just by our personal daily reading habits, but in actual coming together in community. That's how we're showing who we are. And the last little thing I just loved about Carmen Imes' article here is she talks about the Surgeon General in America announced an epidemic of loneliness in the United States. The best antidote I know is to become entangled with others in healthy ways by embedding ourselves in a church community who will notice when we're missing and whose eyes will light up when we walk through the door. And I circled that word entangled and just made a little note. This is not a cultural virtue. We don't see that as a good thing to be entangled with others. A lot of it is, disentangle yourself from toxic people, and this people is demanding too much of you. You should cast them aside. But actually, a church community necessarily entangles you with others, and this is a good thing. That this is part of who we're meant to be as Christians, is to be people in community who are entangled together, who necessarily need each other. And so that I think is it's one of the things I really liked about this particular article and thinking about the way we do church together.
Because it's for our betterment as Christians. It's because I was just saying to you before we started recording, there's many reasons why I love going to church, and I've said many times on the podcast I don't like missing church. But one of the things that we maybe because our culture is that pushes us towards individualism, that when we're unaware of something that God is doing through community sometimes, in terms of you need to be with people for your health. I was thinking, even you are worried about something and you come up and bump up against other people and others' opinions. You might have these sharp concerns or sharp opinions, but bumping up against, they kind of shave the edges off that.
Yeah.
And perhaps frame it in a different way, or put some perspective on something like that you're worried about, just by being in community with people and talking. And you might not even talk about that particular issue, but being in community with people and going, oh, actually, I am not alone. I'm not dealing with this problem on my own, or other people have problems that are worse than me right now.
Yeah.
All that kind of adds to a perspective. I can meet with people and just be present with them, and it changes my mood or my feeling or my anxiety about something. And I think that push towards individualism, what's the right word? It blinds us to the fact that community is actually really the place that we need to be. What do you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's not a new observation to say that Western culture is highly individualistic as opposed to corporate and communal, more Eastern cultures and African cultures tend to be more communal and corporate. And so that's not a new observation. That's been going on for many, many years. And because of that, our high value on independence, but it would seem, both theologically but also sociologically, psychologically, we're actually made to be interdependent, not independent. And that again is that idea that we necessarily embedded in each other's lives. And so there's been lots of studies about people who go to church are psychologically healthier, sometimes even physically healthier, sometimes even financially healthier. And, why is that? Is it, some sort of prosperity gospel thing? No, not necessarily. It's because God has built us to be in community. So therefore, those who particularly noticeable in individualistic cultures, those who buck against that individualism and buy into a community where not all of my needs get met, but I am the answer to other people's needs, actually works in a way that needs I didn't realize I had are actually getting met. So I am psychologically healthier. I am spiritually healthier from, as you say, putting yourself in proximity with others, putting aside some of my own thoughts, desires, affections, and giving to the other person of myself. And so therefore the community really, really matters. And so, it comes into this conversation we've had over the last couple of weeks about commitment, the importance of commitment, the importance of third place being somewhere that I choose to go and I choose to give of myself to this place. And that these are really key aspects of who we are as Christians. And therefore it is no surprise that a strong commitment to your local church where you make that a key part of your weekly rhythms, and even multiple times during the week, meeting with other people in community, life-giving ways, then that is for our betterment because that's how God has designed us and created us to be.
And so I wonder that God also created us with very intelligent minds, and which is, technology is a thing that humans have created.
Yep.
And I wonder how we look at that because I think so much of what we're talking about, that drive towards individualism, and we've talked about this so many times before, but that technology, especially now, is designed to make your life supposedly better.
Yep.
You are the number one when it comes to any kind of algorithm or anything like that because you get the things that you want. But we've also talked about previously how that so much of what we think we want is actually making us dissatisfied as well. I mean, even in this story with, what was her name? Sorry, Carmel, isn't it? Carmen.
Yep.
She's written here. But there's a story there that she says to illustrate this, where she stood behind an older woman than herself at a restaurant in LA, and the drink dispenser has all these. It's just one drink dispenser, but it has a screen on it.
Right.
And it has so many different varieties of drink that the poor woman can't figure out how to work it. And she just literally wanted Sprite. But when she hit the Sprite button, there was like 7 different types of Sprite now. And so isn't it funny that technology has driven this thing of like created all these options. There's more choice than you can ever really get close to consuming. I was thinking even this week about how much I got distracted this week by jumping from one podcast to the other and like desperately looking for that dopamine kick of not like you would on social media, but like I'm just in constant pursuit of this feeling of like, I got heaps out of that. I learned heaps. Yeah. Oh, that was so exciting to listen to. And I'm constantly looking for that. And so I'm jumping between listening to something on YouTube and then listening to something on my phone and then, this is what I want. Oh, what should I listen to today? Like there's so much now. So how do we kind of figure out that like God made us in a way that we were smart enough to create technology, but now we see that the fact that it's driven us all this way to individually seek that stuff rather than seek being in community? Or is it just that, like I said, the individuality technology thing is blinding us from what we actually want to see or actually need to see?
Well, I mean, part of it, I had this conversation with my daughter this week. I think it's Jeremiah, somewhere is it Jeremiah? I can't remember now. You can fact check me, but there's a verse in the Bible that talks about how our heart is deceitful above all else or beyond all things. And so this idea like we, follow your heart and, just do what delights you and those kinds of things is, does not have a appropriate view of the fallenness of our own desires. So our own desires it might be really exciting to spend an hour or 2 hours at home flicking through TikTok. And it is designed in such a way as to captivate our attention and get our neurons firing, and the dopamine hit, and the jackpot thing of like, well, I might only get something I really like every 7th swipe, but I'm really looking forward to whatever it might be. And it's not always the 7th, sometimes it's the 5th, and sometimes it's the 10th. And I don't know when the next one's going to come. And all of that is we're being psychologically hacked by those kinds of things. And as you say, the podcasting, we can get the same thing. It feels like we're long form. So I'm better than the TikTok people because I'm listening to podcasts. But it's still searching the same thing, right?
Yep.
And even books. Like, I mean, one of the things I'm trying to do is to listen to less podcasts and listen to more audiobooks because, again, longer form. But I can fall into the same trap of, oh, great, I knocked off that book. I can tick it off Goodreads and now I can get to the next one. And rather than actually slowing down. And one of the books I'm listening to, ironically, at the moment, quoted from Richard Baxter, who was a Protestant minister centuries ago in England. And he said, "It is not the reading of many books which is necessary to make a man wise or good, but the well reading of a few, could he be sure to have the best." So in other words, it's not necessarily lots of variety, it's digging deeply into a smaller number of things. And I think that, certainly for me, that's a trap of actually probably going back and rereading, re-immersing myself in known texts to get more out of them and more of the high value ones would be beneficial rather than constantly striving for the new hit. Sorry, that was a bit of a wandering, but your question about like why do we not pursue what is ultimately good for us? Part of it is because our desires are corrupt and we don't desire, and also because there are cultural forces at play which pull and push us towards things that are not necessarily good for us. So we've had previously on the podcast conversation about the food thing. Highly processed food is a lot easier to eat, a lot more palatable, sends off more neurons and firing in our brains because of the high sodium, sugar, fat content has been manipulated in such a way that it is highly desirable, far more than healthy food.
And often bypasses your body's natural warning signs that you need to stop eating.
Yes, yeah. So all of those kind of things. So should I follow my desire and eat chocolate instead of eating something that is more nutritious or whatever, highly processed XYZ? No, I mean, that's my desire. But my desire might be corrupted, both because it's fallen and sinful and also because it's being manipulated by outside forces. So it's both an in and an out. Yep. Internal and external forces are both feeding that. And so it comes the same with community, and there's going to be different people. So I'm naturally introverted. I'll be very happy sitting at home reading a book by myself. But there are things that are good for me in community. And so therefore, exerting energy rather than filling up, like the battery idea. So I have to spend energy in community, whereas I recharge energy by being alone. But it's worth spending the energy because it's good for me, it's good for others, and because if we're right, using Carmen's word, this entanglement with each other is actually what we're designed for, then we will flourish the more that we lean into who we're actually designed to be.
Can you talk about, give us more personal insight to that? Because I, for example, get my battery recharged by being with people.
Right, yeah.
I feel tired. I'm like, maybe I should just not do this and stay home. And then now I've learnt now, is like, nah, if I go, I'm going to actually feel better. Right. This is going to be cool. But would you say you would be the flip side of the inverse of that? Oh,
look, I mean, everyone's different. And again, that whole introversion, extroversion is a wild spectrum, and there's lots of other factors at play. So this is very, very simplistic. But that general vibe of introverts will typically recharge by doing quiet things or with one or two others, whereas extroverts will be recharged by being in public spaces with lots of people. Oversimplification, but you kind of get the idea. Mm-hmm. So I really enjoy being with other people. Mm-hmm. I really enjoy church. I enjoy kids ministry.
What about this podcast? Yeah.
This podcast. Well, see, this is interesting because this is this is almost like this is a deep and meaningful with one other or two other people in Stu's here. And so that's more of an introverted thing. So this kind of gives me energy in a way. Whereas it's the big events with lots of people.
Okay.
Particularly when I have to do a lot of small talk. That's what I find most draining, is maintaining conversations that are at that sort of surface level small talk.
Would you rather just go like deep and meaningful?
I'd love to go deep.
So would I.
Away.
I'm with you with that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to talk about
the weather.
How was your day?
How's the local sports team? Yeah. So, yeah. But yes, I love reading. I love researching. I love, doing that by myself with a cup of coffee and a book. Like that is an ideal recharging thing for me. But I also just can't recharge all the time. I mean, that's, you can't leave the battery on the recharger for forever. It's designed to be used. And so whether it's whatever it might be, I'm designed for community in some aspects of my life. And so, working into that as well.
So, and that's fascinating because I actually really love reading too, and I find that quite a recharging activity, but more as a break. I find that I actually, when people just want to veg out and relax, I find that doesn't do me any favors because I feel like I haven't achieved anything.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So I actually, if like, let's say you want to watch a TV show to relax, I only want to watch a TV show that's really good and makes me think.
Okay, interesting.
Similar, like even, I think that's partly drives the desire to get more insight from a podcast that I didn't have before.
Right.
So I find that really hard unless I'm doing, so reading is the same. Reading is like, I want something that's engaging. So I'm really picky with fiction books.
Okay.
Unless it's a really good fiction book and it's kind of a book you almost don't want to put down, I really struggle to get into it. So when I read fiction, I end up going back to my old favourites, for example. But I'm reading, as I think I've said before, I'm reading Tom Holland's Dominion at the moment.
Yep.
And he is really captivated my attention with that book. And it's I'm like, I want to read this book. I want to get more insight and more detail and the way that the story is being told. It's like, this is great. So it's funny that you and I both relax in different ways, but through the same thing, which is reading. But I also have a thing of like, I know a couple of weeks ago, I was just feeling like tired from a really long week and I still wanted to go to church. I was like, I just don't want to feel this tired. And then I'm like, at the end of the night at 8:30, 9 o'clock, I'm like, this is great. What a great night. I feel great. I talked to so many people, had great conversations. So it's interesting how we're all different. And God has made us like that.
That's right. Yeah.
But that's why he brings us together, isn't it? To be in community. And that's what I think what we wanted to delve in this episode is we talked about last week about commitment and how we're like modeling that to our children a lot of the time, but also that what that idea of commitment means. So I'd love to delve into that more because one of the reasons that I've been thinking about it lately is just a number of conversations I've had with other people outside of our particular church that they're, for example, surprised that we meet on a Saturday night in one of our gatherings at least.
Two, in fact.
Oh, two, sorry. That's right. Yeah. Ride does as well. Thank you for correcting me. And so this idea of kind of something that Stuart's spoken about before is that discipleship and mission is almost exported off the main local gathering at the local church. Whereas I think what we're advocating for is commit more to be doing that at the local gathering, spend more time together, be more committed to each other. Therefore, we can be on discipleship and mission outside of church just as much as we said before as well. The action is inside the church.
Yeah.
And therefore you can live those as elect exiles outside of the church as a result of that.
Yep.
What do you reckon? Give me your thoughts, Tim.
Oh, absolutely. And this idea of the action being inside the church, and I think this is what breaks the dichotomy that sometimes people have between mission and evangelism. So, because I think sometimes we communicate that when the action's not in the church, we're communicating to people, well, you wouldn't really want to be here. So I need to run another event
to get you here
that you would want to come to.
Right.
And so part of building pathways of, sort of pre-evangelism pathways or whatever it might be, you have your beer and burgers night and then with a small talk in it. Or you have your community group that, goes to the pub once a month and you sort of just sit around and you invite non-Christian friends to come and be that. And all of this is kind of working on an assumption that it's too big a jump to get my friend to come to church. We need incremental steps along the way. And there is a truth to that. So for people who are really highly skeptical, they might not want to come to church if they've got church hurt, if they grew up in church and have bad experiences. There might be a whole lot of reasons why people don't want to come to your church, and so might need other ways in which you can gather with them, introduce them to church friends. So I'm not dismissing all of those kind of other things that we can do, but I think we have this mindset now that evangelism can only happen outside of church. It must happen through an external course. We have to run Alpha, or we have to run Introducing God, or we have to run these kinds of things to invite people into that conversation, or we have to run these soft evangelism type events and courses. And we're coming up to Christmas, so it's going to be gingerbread houses, and it's going to be wreath making, and it's going to be all these kinds of things about if my friend wouldn't come to church, but they might come to wreath making with me at church on a Thursday night or a Saturday day or whatever it might be. And I think what we're trying to just push back gently against is, why wouldn't they want to come to church? And maybe one of the reasons is that they don't see you really passionate about your church. And so I know that when I interact with someone who's really passionate about something, you can lean into that and you can get excited because they're excited. I had a coffee this week with a friend who's getting really excited about ecological agriculture and this idea of, was that the right term? I can't remember now. But he was basically this kind of agricultural ideas of regenerative agriculture. That's it.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen a bit about this.
So he's doing some part-time, he's a retired guy, he's doing some part-time stuff at a farm and thinking about regenerative agriculture and how they're trying to do agricultural practices that actually feed the soil, because the soil is the biggest issue at the moment. And by doing so, they found that they can not only heal the soil, but actually get better crop out of that as well. And so the way that we've done industrialised farming, there's all this whole story about it. Anyway, he was just getting really excited telling me about all of this regenerative agriculture. And it was just easy to just buy into his infection.
Infection or enthusiasm?
Enthusiasm.
Infectious enthusiasm.
I was infected by his enthusiasm. That's
good.
what I was trying to say.
Yeah, good. He wasn't sick.
He was not sick. Well, I don't think so. No. I was getting caught up in his enthusiasm because he was so passionate about it. And I think this is what we're sometimes missing when we talk about our church, and why we don't think church can be a helpful missional strategy is because we don't have that infectious enthusiasm about our gatherings.
It's like, oh, I've got to go to church.
Just like, oh, I'm going to go to church, or oh, no, I can't do that, I'm going to go to church. But it's when people are excited about church, when they just can't stop talking about it, not in a really awkward, pushy kind of way, but just it naturally spills out of you because you're just passionate about your community of God's people and the commitment to your people. I can't think of anything better than I would rather do on Saturday nights and Sunday mornings than go to Soul Revival. And when I communicate that to other people, it's like, well, why is that? I was like, it's awesome. Like the community is brilliant. Yeah. The friends are good, the food is good, obviously the teaching is good, and the community, but it's just a really wonderful experience. And we talk about this and people go, oh, that's curious. You're welcome to come. Like it's an open space. Oh, I don't know if that's okay. Like I'm not pushing, but if you want to know what Christians are like, come and hang out for 5 hours on a Saturday night or 4 hours on a Sunday morning and come and have breakfast with us if you want to know what Christians are like.
But that's a high level of commitment in itself if it's that long, isn't it? Like
well,
that's
it is.
The contrast,
that's right.
Isn't it?
That's right. But again, things that take commitment, I think it ties into that anti-fragile idea that it seems like it shouldn't work, but it does. In that the things that take higher commitment actually have higher buy-in.
Yep. And
people will have a strong commitment to these things. So we talked last week about Freya India's comments about, your family, your marriage, your divorce is my slop. And it's like, because it takes no effort to engage in this other person's life. They're just a YouTube video or a short on my TikTok account.
You just consume.
I'm just consuming, like flick. I don't care about these people. Whereas the people in my church who I'm walking through life with, who I've prayed through, whether it might be an infertility, for years through to a successful adoption or a successful conception and birth, or the people who I've prayed for years with and walked beside as they go through cancer treatments, or they've cared for their dying parents, or this is not, their lives are not my slop. I'm not consuming their life. I'm walking beside them. Yes, it's a high level of commitment, but therefore the payoff relationally and the entanglement I now have with this person because I've walked beside them with this particular issue and they've walked beside me, that's the payoff. And if we communicate that to people, then people who are caught up in this loneliness epidemic, it's like, how do I fix the loneliness epidemic? I've tried going for massages and saunas, and I've tried, vegging, 16 seasons of Virgin River on Netflix, and I can't work out why I'm so lonely. And it's just well, what if you try something different? What if you come with me to my community? Because I can guarantee you I'm never lonely on a Saturday night. I'm never lonely on a Sunday morning. And if I am lonely during the week, I've got 200 people that I could call up and say, hey, just wanted to chat, just wanted to, how you going? Or just text people. That's part of this embeddedness, but the commitment creates that embedment. The commitment to it creates that entanglement, which Carmen Imes is talking about. And that's why the commitment is so important. If you hang loose to your church community, then it's not a surprise that therefore, you don't have that long-term commitment with those people. You don't feel embedded with them, entangled with them, until we're actually entangled up in life with them so that their life affects my life and my life affects their life. We're not actually living into whom God has created us to be.
Mm. And I love how you said that almost again you're warding off the loneliness epidemic by just being part of that community rather than you've already said it, but it's like I've done all the things that the world tells me to do, those individualistic pursuits, that self-care that supposedly is a thing that we need to do a lot of the time. But really, I think it's almost like the best version of self-care is actually being in community and not going to seek, like you said, the massages or the facial or the going on a discovery retreat by yourself.
Yep. And again, I think by God's common grace, all of those things can be restorative in different ways. Yep. Absolutely. I mean, I quite enjoy going for a sauna and just, being there and sweating it out for an hour. And I don't do it very regularly. Maybe.
What are you doing during that hour? Are you reading?
The one of the places I go to, the place I go to about once a year. So this is not a regular pastime. They actually have Bluetooth speakers in the sauna. Oh. So it's an infrared sauna, so there's no steam.
No steam
affecting. So I can again play an audio book, play a podcast, and I can just sort of sweat it out while I'm.
We should do a sauna sesh together. I haven't been to a sauna for a while.
Do a live podcast from the or a recording from the sauna room. How much equipment can we get in there?
I reckon. I know that the infrared works with electrical equipment, but I really want the pouring over the hot rocks.
Yeah, that is fun. That is a good part of there. Yeah. And certainly like nature as well. Like there's lots of writing at the moment, particularly like I've been reading a lot about screen time and technology and all those kinds of things.
Walking, as we said.
Well, walking and but also that touching nature, like being out in the world, touching grass. That it genuinely works because again, that's God has created us to be in community. Sorry, no, that's not the right word, but in his nature. Like we are built for the natural world. And so it obviously makes sense that, if you're near the beach and you can get to the beach, the surf, the sand, the spray, that is really beneficial. Yep. One of the books I've been reading this week is called Glow Kids. And it's about 10 years old, but it's talking about screen addiction in kids and adolescents particularly.
No, 10 years ago.
So it's about 10 years old. So there was actually, I was reading it going, there's nothing particularly new in here that I haven't read in Jonathan Haidt's work or, the After Babel Substack where lots of authors contribute, Janine Tweng's, all those authors that I read a lot of. So there was nothing new in it, but it was actually fascinating that for 10 years ago, well before really Instagram had taken off, before TikTok, before Reels and YouTube Shorts and all those kind of things, there was still this gaming addiction, screen addiction and stuff that he's referring to. So in some ways, not a lot has changed, but also I think we are in a heightened state as well. But he was saying right at the end of the book, he gets to one of his solutions. He's an addiction specialist. And he talks about this nature space that he has created. He's kind of co-founded as one of these retreats, and it's just detox off screens. But again, not just the negative, but also the positive and go out into nature. So you're removing the things that is harming you, and you're building into you the things that are positive for you. And again, like, Carmen Imes' thing does the same thing. Like, let's put away the screens, let's put away the technology, let's put away some of that individualism that exacerbates, and let's, in analog, in-person, incarnate community, live into the other person-centered community that we're actually being designed for. So it's a putting off, but also a putting on, and it's both those two things together, which I think is really, really key.
Yeah, okay. So then the other thing that I think is really important to talk about is being committed to a community is the way that it shapes our identity. And we touched on this in the last episode too, especially with our children, but I think it's not just children, obviously. It's God's created a community, and as we would advocate, an intergenerational community. Because you are not only in your community of like-minded, similar demographic or similar age people, you have got older saints, younger Christians. They are forming the faith formation that you talk about so eloquently sometimes, is happening in a far, far greater level. You're laughing at that.
I sometimes talk eloquently about it.
Oh, sorry. When you sometimes talk about it, it is eloquent.
Thank you.
Jeez, you threw me off there. But that's the thing too, isn't it? Is that it's almost like you're unlocking, like unlocking a secret to actually how to live the alternate story that we talked about last time, isn't it? It's the different story is actually, there is such a more freeing, I don't want to say a better way to live, because people can get a little bit head up about that, but it's trying to help people to understand, if you commit to this and you commit to understanding that spending lots of time together with God's people, that there is a richer, more deeper experience and you would get if you just isolated yourself and watched Netflix for forever. Yeah.
And this is why I'm so passionate about researching socio-cultural faith formation, because I think this is, that's the fancy term for what God is doing. Like, he's built us to be saved into community. Like, we are, there's absolutely the personal individual relationship with Jesus that must be thing. None of us can be saved by virtue of other people's faith. And yet other people's faith are also essential to who we're being built into. And so, the greatest command is to love God and love others. It's together they make the greatest command, which is, how to actually be a disciple of Jesus is to be embedded. John in his, I think it's 1 John, talks about, you can't say you love God and hate his brothers and sisters. Like, you just can't. There's no category for an unchurched Christian in the New Testament. Doesn't exist. And so what I love about this intersection of theology and sociocultural formation and childhood development and all of this kind of stuff is, we're understanding how God has actually made us to be. And so, of course, it makes sense that the rich, interconnected world of a intergenerational church, which we're all sharing the same stories, is going to form a deep and long-lasting faith in the young people, particularly, that are growing up. That's my interest, but also across all generations. Of course it is. And all of these sociological tools are just noticing, thinking God's thoughts after him, noticing how it is that God works in community. What does it actually mean for these things to actually be playing into the ecosystem of faith, which is the intergenerational church?
And I think there's also, talking about him being invited into a community, I think of my own personal story about how I became a Christian, was that I was going to youth group, but I was invited to be part of that by someone that was in my year group, right? But then the way that I was invited into a community of my leaders, but then also later on as we grew older, like a wider community of Christians as well. And I think it had obviously you've just said that, like a personal proclamation of faith and knowing that Jesus has died on the cross for you. That has to come first, for sure. But the evidence of what that had the effect that it had on other people's lives was, I think, the thing that made me realize there was more to this.
Right. Yeah.
So I was in a situation where I felt I wasn't really, I don't know if the right word, like understood, or like the kind of friendships that I wanted at school I was not getting.
Yep.
And so youth group, and then my leaders, and then the friends that came from youth group growing up provided that for me. And it was the love that other people showed me, like, you can be who you are, was what I was like, there's something special here. Obviously what I've been looking for a long time. Therefore, I clearly have to become a Christian, because I believe this too. So therefore now I can be part of that community.
Yep.
Because I think I'm trying to make the link between being invited into that, but also that God had created me to be as part of that too. And I wonder if there is it's almost like a line. It's like you can be like the cultural zeitgeist is, you can be a Christian and individually yourself and however you want. But I wonder if the barrier is to get into the community that we're not understanding that so much as a culture, or maybe when we want to invite people to church. What do you think? Because we talk about Oldenburg a lot.
Yep.
First place
theory.
Yeah, third place theory. So third place theory. I said for third place theory. First place is your home. Second place is your work or your school, and third place is community. And what you can, he says that's where we play. Even as adults, that's where we play, and where we actually are able to, again, like I said, bump up against each other. And so that theory has influenced how we chose to design the factory at Kirrawee, for example.
The architecture and the design.
Yeah, so if people haven't been to Kirrawee, it's actually two factories next to each other, and we punched a hole between the two of them. But one is a more cafe style. We've thought more about just making a cafe, but it is an area where you can invite people into. And then the next kind of factory through the doors is where we actually have what you call a formal church service.
Yeah, it's almost like an auditorium type space.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever come up with a good name for that.
No, but it's that kind of.
Yeah, but it's more like a space where you
church space.
Sit down and it's focused towards the front.
Yes.
But I'm wondering if that line, they were saying there's a hard line, those kind of things like Oldenburg's talking about, and the way that we've designed that is an effort to blur those lines, so that you can be invited into a community and see what it's like to live as part of community without fully having to commit. This is a new person who hasn't been to church before, without fully having to commit to going into a church building. Because it's sometimes, I think, if you're inviting someone to come to church, their immediate reaction is a steeple and fire and brimstone preacher and people that are hardline fundamentalist Christians and things like that. Whereas that design offers an opportunity for people to actually come in and see what it's like, and they can leave as well. But the irregulars and irregulars concept that Oldenburg also talks about is that we want to invite people to become more regular, and then regulars definitely go and be part of the church service. But there's time either side where people can be invited in and out. But there's an interesting thing that you raised before we started recording, was about the environmental factors that can actually have a big impact on how we actually do discipleship mission at the actual church gathering. So can include Oldenburg, but also what that kind of looks like as you come from, even as an adult or even as a child. Like, how can you create these environmental factors that actually make it more warm and inviting for people coming out of that commitment thing of like, we're here every week for a long time, and this is why. Yep.
Yeah, so the ecological systems theory is by a guy called Yuri Bronfenbrenner.
Great name.
Great name. I have not spent enough time with Bronfenbrenner yet. I think he's probably my next dead person that I want to get to know really well.
It's like how many other dead people?
Actually, he may not be. Actually, not all the people.
Reading old books as conversations with the dead?
Well, yeah, there's that kind of idea. So yeah, he's a really, really key developmental psychology, sociology type person in this world of child development, particularly. And so he's got these multiple ecosystems. And so he talks about the microsystem to an individual are all the different little worlds that they live in. So for a child, it's going to be the school, the family, the neighborhood, their friendships, maybe outside sport, those kind of, they've all these little worlds that they live in. So they're all the different microsystems. You've got this little system outside of that called the meso system, and this is where they all interact with each other. And so the family, you are part of your family, but when you do parent-teacher night, you've kind of got this meso system of the two micros joining each other and coming together. When the family come and sit on the sideline of the soccer game, you've got these little meso system connections going on. So that's all working together. You've then got a system outside of that, which is the exo system. And so these are things that indirectly apply to the kid. So the child is not necessarily in these worlds, but these worlds have an impact on the way the child experiences life. So it might be extended family, it might be the parents' friends or the parents' workspaces. What happens at a parent's work? The child is not in that world, but obviously if you've had a great day, you've had a really stressful day, and you will bring that home and bring that to bear in the household and therefore into the child's life. And so you might have more capacity, more or less capacity, more or less mental space, more or less energy. You might be frustrated or joyful or whatever it might be, just caught up with the thought of, I might be getting a promotion, and but all of that comes into the home and therefore affects the child. So it's the outside system. Local governments, decisions that they make about where playgrounds are going to be, where schools are going to be, if you're going to close this public school and merge them with another public school a little bit further away, or like all of these systems that the local government makes. And so you keep them going. Then you've got the macro system, which is economic systems, culture, political systems, social systems. And right on the outside, you've got the chrono system, which is time. The chrono system. Yeah, that sounds good, isn't it? That's a very bare bones version. But here's the thing I really like. I've said before on the podcast, I really like complexity. I really like the fact I like ecology and ecological systems, because it shows us how immersed and interconnected all these different worlds are. And one of the things that writers who are using ecological systems theory talk about is that all these systems are impacting the child, but also the child is impacting all these systems as well. So there's both we talk about top down, bottom up, like all these systems involving the child, but the child is also inputting into all these systems as well. So there's a mutual thing going on. What I'm particularly interested in is what formation this is doing for the child. So another article I read this week was just talking about child's use of media, a young person's use of media, and what is that doing. So media is going to be one of these systems that is playing in their ecological world of their culture, society, how they spend their time. And what they were talking about is that the activities that you do during a day or during a week, they're forming your ability. So if you do lots of soccer, you will grow in your ability to do soccer. If you do lots of trombone practice, you will grow in your trombone playing. If you do lots of Xboxing, then you will be growing in your capacity, your abilities for Xbox. So whatever it is, you're growing in an ability because of your immersion in that activity. So that, kind of makes sense. It's a technical way of going, no duh. But that makes sense. The other thing it's doing is it's actually forming your identity. So as you engage in these activities, they are shaping who you perceive yourself to be. So I am a soccer player, or I am someone who plays soccer. I am someone who plays the trombone. I am someone who plays the Xbox. I'm a gamer. I'm a whatever it might be. So the activities that you engage in are forming your sense of self and who you think you are. And the other key thing is it's building all your social ties. So the people you're engaged with. So it's online community through your Xbox game, or whether it is your soccer community, or whether it's your band community that you play with. Well, you practice by yourself and then you bring that to band. These are all building your social network and your social capacity. So again, this article I was reading had nothing to do with church. I actually don't think they mentioned church at all. But in this terms of commitments and entangling ourselves into other people for the sake of community, I kept coming back to, okay, so what does this actually mean for a child or teenager whose regular activity is being at church regularly for Friday nights and Saturday nights and Sundays or midweek? And what is it doing to have church be one of the key activities that you are doing? What is it doing? Well, you're growing your ability, if this theory is correct. What kind of abilities? Well, partly they're virtue characteristics. They're also going to be the life of the church together. So if you're regularly leading or reading the Bible or praying with others or serving coffee or whatever it might be, that there are activities involved in the gathering of God's people, that you are growing in those activities. That makes sense. What was the next one? Identity. So this is a really key one for faith formation, is the more time I spend in these communities that are Christ-centered communities and where the activities are Christ-focused, either directly through reading, singing, praying, or indirectly just through the community that we have together, you're building your identity as a Christian. It is really strong in my sense of self and my identity of who am I? I'm a Christian. I must be. This is who I am. This is all the things that I do. So it's building the sense of who I am in that, reaffirming that, strengthening that, giving more and more evidence to yourself that this is who you are. And then the other key thing, and this is the entanglement piece, is it's building our social world together. And so these are the people I meet with regularly. And that's why commitment to your particular local church matters, and why you don't, just church hop, different church every different week. Kind of like it would kind of work in terms of you are meeting with God's people, but you're missing the key aspect of, no, this group of local people is really, really key, because you're embedding yourself in this particular expression, which is not to say it's better than the church down the road. It's just your church. So commit to a church. Doesn't matter which one, just commit to a church. And your commitment to your entanglement with those people is building your social connections. So these are some of the ways in which the church actually fits into these ecological systems. And you could kind of build that out into the different, mesosystems, exosystems, macrosystems, etc. How does the decisions made at the Anglican Synod affect the child's experience of their local church? Like that would be, one of those outsider systems feeding into the system. We look back and go, how did the industrialisation of children's and youth ministry affect the formation of children? Those kinds of big cultural systems. So that's a world I'd love to explore more and spend a bit more time in. But again, it plays into this piece of commitment and local church and the importance of meeting together regularly, because it builds your ability, it builds your identity, it builds your social system. Mm-hmm. And they're all really essential factors for what it means to grow as a disciple of Jesus.
Yeah, because I feel like from what you're saying there, like while it might be that research is more child-centric, is that correct?
He was a child developmental psychologist, I think. Yes, that was his focus. It works for anyone. I mean, you could talk to a middle adult and talk about their middle adults, microsystems, mesosystems, et cetera, et cetera. So it works across. It just his particular focus was child development.
Mm. But I think something, we've talked about this before, of like the children in our church are, the church of today just as much as they are the church of tomorrow.
Yep.
And I think sometimes, and this is the beauty of intergenerational ministry too, is that you can learn so much from children. And I think sometimes they actually have the key answer to things rather than the other way around. And I think everything you're speaking about there is actually somewhat more applicable to adults, obviously in different life stages, but could be even more applicable to adults than it is for children, because similarly that we are more open to being influenced as we get older by other groups outside of our parents or even our church. And I think that's where the commitment piece really speaks to adults is, well, what are you committed to? Because I think sometimes that's a question for adults maybe around my age that don't go to church even. It's like, what are you committed to? I think you just find they're usually committed to their family if they have one.
Yep.
Committed to their partner, for example. But what else are you committed to? And I think the answer is often, I don't know. Because they're looking into, and I think they're looking for it. They're looking for something to commit to or something that will benefit them. But I think that's the problem, is that because, as we've said, technology and individualism pushes them towards choosing something for themselves, that they sometimes can't find the community that they're actually looking for, that God has created them to be. And so then it comes down to the personal individual decision first, to like as part of being invited into a Christian community, I think. And so they obviously have to become a Christians themselves. But again, that's a high level of commitment. It's a high level of cost just to become a Christian, isn't it? It's the greatest decision you'll make in your life. So it requires a lot of commitment. And then to live that out is living in God's grace, allowing the Spirit to change you. But also, it's so funny how these two things work together, is that the individualistic of, you've got to work on your own discipleship. You've got to be, it's so important that we continue to grow and be more like Jesus. But as a result, you must go and do that as part of a community as well. And that's how I see it. And I think people are like, that's too high a level of cost or commitment to people that are perhaps outside of church. What do you think?
Oh, I mean, it's possible. Yeah. Yeah. But I also, it strikes me as curious. I don't know what the right word is. Like, God commands things for our good. And so again, we know just from secular sociological research that the healthiest people are those who are embedded in a community that is outside of just their own personal individualism.
And
whether it
like
be sports clubs, they live longer. So like sports clubs, chess clubs, book clubs, like if you've got a community where you have to put off some of your own preferences for the sake of living well with others, you are typically speaking, a healthier person. Same with people who don't work 24/7, but actually take an entire day at least of just resting and not doing something and just doing things that are restorative for you, whether it's, nature walks or playing with your kids or taking your dog for a beach walk or whatever, like they're healthier people. And it's like, well, you look at what God, he commands me to have a Sabbath. Oh, he commands me to be committed to my local church. It's like
infringes on my individuality.
It infringes on me. Yes, it does. And you, generally speaking, are going to be healthier for it. Yeah. Now, this is not to diminish. There are people who have a genuine church hurt, who have been abused or sidelined or mistreated in church communities. And so that's real. I want to acknowledge that there are people for whom that is true. But the God-given solution to even that is to find a healthier community to be a part of, and to entrust yourself to someone else and to entrust yourself into another group. We will all hurt each other. That will happen. We're still fallen. Even the best Christian communities still have sinful people in them, every single one of them. Yep. And so we're not going to be perfect. But it is part of who we are as Christians to be embedded into other people's lives. And so, yes, is it a high commitment? Absolutely it is. Is it absolutely worth it? Of course it is. It's kind of like, marriage or parenting. Like, if you want a perfectly designed house unit that fits all of your individualistic ideals and where you don't have to cater to anyone else, then you will live by yourself the entire time and you will be lonely for the experience. If you actually have housemates and you invite them into that space and you commit to living together in a way in which you have to go through compromise, then that is going to also give you something else. Whether it's marriage, kids, housemates, whatever it might be, these things, yes, they impinge on my individualism. Of course they do. They take up my time, my attention, my focus. Am I better for those things? Absolutely. Because I'm actually not designed to be an individual. I'm designed to be in community with variety of different people. Yeah,
definitely. Well, that brings us to the end of the episode.
That's a great end.
However, new segment.
Ooh. This is right.
No, you forgot it already.
I forgot all this. Yeah.
Tim's takeaway.
From
talking about being committed, being in community, and how it shapes us and our identity. What would you like people to be thinking about as they hopefully haven't switched off this episode just yet?
Go to church.
It's a good takeaway.
Oh yeah.
Spend more time at church.
So I think the key here is the people in your church are God's gift to you and you are God's gift to them in a way that is actually healthy and formative for you. It will take effort. It will not be perfect. You will hurt them and they may hurt you. And yet in a Christ-centered, grace-filled, forgiveness-giving community, that's actually a good thing for you in how God has designed you to be.
That's great. Thank you, Tim. You're getting, like you said, you were going to get tighter. It's getting tighter.
Okay.
I like it. You're ready for next week. It's going to be 3 words.
3 words.
That's it. Well, you did say go to church more. What's that? Go to church more. 4 words. That's 4.
More, right, yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much for today.
You're welcome, Joel.
You're awesome. Thank you very much. And everyone listening and watching, you're awesome too. So thanks for being part of this enjoyable podcast that we get to record and put out there, and to put out actually, they're not new ideas. Community is not a new idea, but to think about it in a different way, and hopefully give you a new perspective on different things in regards to church and church community. If you have any thoughts or queries or questions, or queries and questions are the same thing, but whatever you want to say, email me, joel@shoggleswelber.com.au, and we would love to hear from you. But with that, thank you very much for listening or watching. Tim, thanks again for a great episode.
Thank you, Joel.
I enjoyed it. And we will finish with a one way.
One way.
One way.